to put in the URL for what this webinar can be found on the California Adult Education website. And okay, and like I've stated before, if you're attending with colleagues from your site, please be sure to let us know who you are attending with, and we'll be sure to capture every participant in the webinar today during our attendance. And also, if you have logged in and have used an acronym or abbreviation for your name, please be sure to let us know what your full name is so that we can capture it in our attendance. The chat pod, please be sure to use the chat pod for any questions throughout the course of this webinar. Sharice will be able to address your questions. If she does not get to your question immediately, please be patient and she will get to it as soon as she can. But questions are more than welcome and they will be answered via the chat pod. Some basic menu functions. At the top right hand corner of your screen, you'll find the communications menu. You can open this and use an icon to let us know that you are trying to communicate with us. So if you are asking us to speak louder or speak softer, to speed up, slow down, if you agree or disagree with something, you are able to use those features. And there's no need to call in if you have speakers or a headset. And if you can't hear, please be sure to let us know in the chat pod and I will address your technical issues via a private chat. At the bottom of the chat pod, you will see a tab that will be yellow highlighted with my name. That's my way of communicating with you privately via a private chat to address any issues. Some quick things that you can do to fix technical issues related to sound is to make sure that your sound icon up top is highlighted yellow. Another quick fix is to just log out of Adobe Connect and come back into the room, and that should address any technical issues you have related to sound. And at this time, I am not seeing anyone with any technical issues. But again, if you have any technical issues, please be sure to let us know via the chat pod. In addition, the PowerPoint presentation for today's webinar is available for download, and you can find that located at the bottom of your screen. It's titled Equity Presentation with today's date. So if you select that file and select download, it will download to whatever browser your computer typically downloads. Now I will turn it over to Sharice Moore, who will get us started with today's webinar. Sharice.
All right. Thank you so much, Veronica. And hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. Veronica, I don't know if it was just me, but there was a little cutting out every occasion as you were going through some of the tips as we got started. So if you're hearing that same cutting out from me, please type in the general chat and let me know, and we'll see if there's a fix that we need to address that. I am delighted to be able to speak with you about equity and what that means in terms of your role as leaders. I don't know what specific role you have. We're going to find out a little bit about that shortly, but I am going to make some guesses and assumptions that whether or not you are in a formal leadership role, that you are here because you recognize the role of leadership in ensuring that there's equity and access on our campuses for our students and throughout the population that we are serving. So again, I am delighted that you are here joining this webinar. This is a repeat of a session that was offered at the summit earlier this year. And the feedback that we got was that this was a topic that was very well received and timely, especially within the environment within which we are serving our students. So again, happy and honored to be able to spend the next hour with you talking about equity, and it's really a discussion that we're going to have. There'll be some content that will be shared with you related to equity and understanding a leader's role, but I want you to think about this truly as a discussion opportunity. We don't really get that much where we can reflect and think about our role as leaders and how we ensure that our students are successful. And so I want you to think about this as that opportunity to truly reflect and have this discussion around this content area, looking at charting the path to equity. So I know many of the names I recognize there, so I won't spend much time doing any background on me, but those of you who don't know me know that my heart is one of service, and I have been in this field that we are in as adult education, as an adult educator for 30 years. And throughout all of that time, I've focused on making sure that we keep our focus on serving our students and ensuring their success, because we really do have the opportunity to change their lives and to change their trajectory for success. So from that framework, I'm going to get started. All right, so we're going to be covering a few things, um, just some basic pieces about the overview that I've given you already, and our objectives I'll highlight here momentarily. We're going to find out who you are and do some introductions, but not in the typical sense of introductions and finding out who you are, but in a way in which it will help us to think about the field from which many of those that we serve are coming from, and the lens through which many of those who we serve see things. We're then going to define equity and talk about what that means. It's defined in a specific way for this webinar, and I want us to think about that definition as we are looking at those that we serve. We're going to then talk about, well, what does that mean in relationship to what I do as an adult educator and the purpose and mission of my work. And then we're going to get into some of the strategies to help you be a leader for equity. And after we highlight those strategies, we'll allow some time for questions, and hopefully we won't run out of time and get all of that accomplished in this hour. So our goals today, our objectives, I really want to make sure that we are able to define equity and distinguish it from what many times people see as competitors to equity, that we are able to clearly say, no, that's a conversation about this, but we need to have a conversation about equity. And so by defining it, we're going to help you to get there. And then again, connecting that to your work and your mission, that you'll be able to help continue this conversation and discussion by being able to make sure that it's clear how what you do is directly connected to ensuring equity in our services to our students. And then again, hitting on making sure that you know what some of the strategies are. We're not going to get into all of them. There's a lot of ways in which you can approach the concept of equity within educational organizations. We're going to talk about one area in particular and look at those strategies, and so you'll be able to know what those are. And then my true hope is that even if you walk with only one thing from this webinar, it's that you will start to look at how you make decisions, how you put things in practice, policies that you may institute, by looking at it through a lens of equity. And I say that as an educator, but I say that also as a public servant who I serve in a capacity on a school board as an elected public official. And I make decisions for students every day that I need to make sure are decisions that we are making through a lens of equity and understanding what sometimes the unintended implications and impacts may be for the decisions that we make and the policies that we put into place. And so as you look at things through a lens focused on equity, sometimes it helps you make more informed decisions. And so that's the one thing I want you to leave with today as that lens focused on equity. All right, so how does that sound? Is that what you signed up for? All right. I need your enthusiasm. It's hard when you can't see folks and see heads nodding. So when I ask questions, just jump in and type your stuff in the chat, and let's just keep it rolling. All right, so first thing, as I said, we're going to do some introductions to help us think about where we are and who we are and where we are in relationship to those who we serve. And so this says who's in the room, who's in our Adobe Connect room that we have here this afternoon. And to help us find out, I have some questions to ask. They're going to be formed in two ways. They're going to come across as do you ... or have you ever ... And those of you who know me, you know I talk with my hands, and so it's hard again for you to not see me doing my visual ... but just imagine that. And I'm going to hit you with these 8 questions, and you're going to have about 30 seconds to quickly respond to them. I don't want us to take too much time going through them, but you're going to answer do you or have you ever as these questions start to show. So we have a poll for you to get started, and the first one is, do you regularly take a vacation? Regularly can mean once a year. If it's like, I would love it to be if it's quarterly, but do you regularly take a vacation? And there's 24 of you, so I'm just checking it out to see when we get to close to that amount who are responding to this. So do you regularly take a vacation? I'll give you a few more seconds. Okay, and we're going to broadcast all of these together in a moment, but the next one then is, oops, not there, sorry. It's the poll that I need to move up, not this slide. Next one, do you consider yourself an administrator, a teacher, a counselor, or do you have another position in adult education? Yes, please click in the box to answer the question. Click in the chat box in the middle of your screen, bottom half. All right, good. So mostly administrators here. And then the next one is, do you consider yourself to have a similar background as the majority of the students you serve? So we're starting from easy to more reflective. And there's no definition provided around background. That's for you to decide. Okay, and the next question is, do you feel that you understand what is meant by living in poverty or being economically disadvantaged? Okay, all right, and so then we're going to get to the have you ever questions. So you've seen them up there, and they are already on the right side of the slide. So the first one is, have you ever attended an adult school as a student yourself? Great, great. All right. And then the next question, have you ever, and again, going from easier to more difficult to think about, but have you ever experienced people making assumptions about you because of your appearance? Wow, okay. All right. Good. Okay. And next question. This is a hard one. Have you ever made assumptions about other people because of their appearance? You guys are a brilliantly honest group, so I can tell already I'm going to be preaching to the choir, but that's okay. We all need motivation sometime. Okay, then the next question, the last one. Have you ever not eaten, not had a place to sleep, or not been able to pay a bill? Utility bills are what I have listed there, because you did not have the money to do so as an adult. Okay, okay. This is great. Veronica, can you put up the layout that has all 8 so that we can see them all together? Okay, great. So I want you to take a look at their responses as a whole that you shared on the do you or have you ever. And just take a moment to think about what some of the answers are that we have there. The first and last questions, interestingly, even split on taking a vacation, and last question, number 8, on having not eaten, not had a place to sleep, or not being able to pay a bill as an adult because you didn't have the money. That's interesting to me. Considering yourself to have similar backgrounds as your students, most of us don't. About a little over a third of us do. We didn't define background, so I know that could be a point of discussion. But from our understanding of what that means, most of us don't. Have you ever attended adult school as a student? That was great to see that almost half of you have. Good. Our 2 pieces on assumptions, people making assumptions about us or us making assumptions about others, 100% in both cases that has happened. And then we mostly think we understand what it means to be living in poverty or to be economically disadvantaged. And I guess I could have asked that question a little bit differently, meaning, do you understand what is meant by living in poverty, not by what the books and definitions tell us what that means, but do you understand what is meant by it because you understand what it is, because maybe you've been there. And then mostly administrators in this group and a few other positions. If you can type those in the chat pod, the general chat, that would help me a bit just in knowing a little bit more about who everyone is who's joining us on this webinar now. All right, so Veronica, we'll go to the next slide and we'll start to talk about then our definition of equity. Thank you, Wendy. All right, so we've talked a bit about who we are, and I hope that you see that I am coming at this with, there are many frames through which we can look at equity. One that becomes the easy one to often start with is through the lens of poverty. And so we're going to be approaching this session through that lens. And so as you think about equity and what it means, can you just take a few minutes to write down what your definition is of equity? How do you define equity in education? Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Sherry. Hi, Sherry. Thank you, Kenneth. ERAE Consortium Manager, Uta. Hi, Uta. So go ahead, take a moment in that center chat. Type in your definition of equity. What does equity mean? I know you're here to learn about it, but what do you think it means? In the center chat over there. I see many of you typing it in the general chat. Go ahead and use that center chat, the bigger space. I see fairness. I see access. Esther, very good. What they need when they need it. Equal access. What they need to overcome obstacles. Thank you, Mary. Access to the resources. Good, Wendy. Stable, transparent, equally accessible. Very good. All right. Perfect. Good. Wonderful. Okay, I see Kenneth is typing. I am going to move us along to letting you know one way that takes into account much of what you shared as we think about equity and what it means. Someone looked it up on Wikipedia. Thank you, Bronca. Equity. All right, so according to Webster, Merriam-Webster, justice, according to natural law or right, specifically freedom from bias or favoritism. Freedom from bias or favoritism. And I saw this, I think, in maybe Esther or Eileen's response. Giving everyone what they need to be successful is the way in which we're going to be talking about equity. It's giving everyone what they need to be successful. And that doesn't mean that it's equal, because equality is defined as treating everyone the same. And I saw that in some of our responses too. It doesn't mean that. It means giving everyone what they need to be successful. And that doesn't, again, equate with equal in all cases, because not everyone starts from the same place. And not everyone needs the same help. The challenge comes because sometimes equity can appear to be unfair, and I saw that in some of our comments and definitions. It can sometimes appear to be unfair because it might be giving someone else a little bit more and someone else a little bit less. And so it can appear unfair, but it is giving everyone what they need to move closer to success, because this is a term that people either like or don't like. It is indeed leveling the playing field. And so I'm a visual learner. I'm one who says, look, you just got to see it. So here it is for you to look at. Equality versus equity. So when you think about equal, everybody has the same. But if you look at the kids on the equal side, on the left side of this pane, and not everyone's going to be successful by having the same. And so equity levels that playing field. And so you see on the right side, on the equity side, Everybody's about the same height and able to see over the fence just in the same way, because you've given the one who needed the most a bigger lift. And so this is one way in which you can visually think about equity. And I'm going to show you one more visual. You may or may not like it, but we're showing it anyway, because this is what reality is often like. If you look to the far right, that's why we need a lens of equity, because that is often the reality. I see people asking where I got these graphics, and if I say it, I'll probably get in trouble because I probably shouldn't have these graphics, but I have them. And so anyway, those of you, you'll get my information at the end, and so we can talk offline. This is maybe what you've seen, and this is certainly what many of our students experience. So let's tie this then to what we do and to the purpose of our work. So all of you have chosen to work in adult education and to be adult educators. My guess is that you didn't all grow up saying, I want to be an adult educator. But somewhere along your journey, you found an amazing place that had the connection and capacity to do amazing work, to change communities, to change people's lives, to have an impact that started from changing family dynamics, that impacts ultimately all those in the family, children, grandmothers, our students, who you found it. And you know what it is that we do, but I want us to always think about why it is that we do what we do. I bet you could state to me your mission statement. But when you look at your mission statement, does it reflect on the why we serve, who we serve? Does it really help you think about why we exist as programs and educational institutions to help our students succeed? What is our mission? Why do we do what we do? And as I said, I'm starting this through a lens looking at poverty as one of many frameworks for us to look at as we consider equity. And so in doing that, I'm going to help us think a little bit about why we do what we do by sharing some stats with you. So you've heard about this invisible line called the poverty line. This data is from 2016, and this data tells us that the government has defined poverty as individuals who live below a certain income level based on the size of their family. So what I have bolded is what used to be known as a nuclear family, a typical family of four. We know our families are very diverse and very different, but I just wanted to give us a frame of reference to think about that family of four, whatever its makeup. $24,563 a year to serve a family of four is a way in which our government has defined anyone who is at that level or below is living in poverty in our country. And I ask you to think about that and think about your salary and think about the getting to know ourself activity that we just did, when some of you identified having experienced situations that might make you feel like you were going without or didn't have enough. And to think about, even if at that time you would have been able to live on $24,563,000. This family of four. That's our poverty line. This is nationally. We know it's different in California. Some other stats to think about. In our country, there are 40 million people living in poverty. 12%, almost 13% of our population lives in poverty. And of those, one of the groups that grew living in poverty, we're aging as a society, and as we're aging, the aging population is struggling more economically. The only group that increased the number of people living in poverty is those 65 and over. 6% of our population lives in deep poverty. And what deep poverty is that they live with 50% of the thresholds that we saw here. So if you imagine that family of four living with $12,000 a year, that's deep poverty. We have 6% of our population living that way in this country today. Well, 2016. And for adults that are 25 and over without a high school diploma, getting a little closer to home and to who we might serve, poverty rate is 25%. That's our students. That's who we serve. Find where you live on this map. Find where you live and look at what the poverty rate is where you live. California has the highest poverty rate of any state in the country at 20.4%. 8 million people. 8 million of our potential students, or their families, or their children. So this is a why. This is why we do what we do. Some of us get funding from WIOA, and it was designed to really help improve the opportunity of those who are living in poverty to improve their quality of life through education. That was the vision for this law. So I hope that you can see the connections between what we do and why we do it. You, who are mostly administrators on this call, and others who've been called to understand the leader's role as a leader of equity, you must be aware and attentive to issues that go beyond poverty when addressing issues of equity, but include poverty, race, class, gender, language barrier, power, privilege, and many other areas, and understand the implications of these areas when it comes to equity. You have to make sure that our students, each and every one of them, is able to truly have the type of educational experience that gives them what they need to succeed, that gives them that lift, that support, whatever it might be. But we need to know our students first to do that. And once we know where they're at, what they're struggling with, where they're coming from, we have to give them all the opportunity to successfully engage in a quality education experience. We have that responsibility. That is our role. That is a purpose. That is the mission of our work. That is our role as leaders. That is the challenge that we have to come to work with every day and figure out how we can decide to make a difference. Acting through this equity lens, which again is the one main thing I'm hoping you leave this webinar with, is what will help us get there. Sometimes it's really hard to think about that when we're dealing with the day-to-day management of our role, but we have to continue to pull ourselves out of that intentionally as leaders to make sure that we're striving to provide our students with exactly what they need when they need it to succeed. So here's some strategies and things to think about as we're looking at how we can focus on enhancing equity. Okay, so I'm pulling from some literature that you'll get in the resources, but in this literature, it identifies 4 domain areas that you can look at when you are trying to enhance equity. And those areas are curriculum interpretation, instructional practices, community involvement, and assessment. And let me further clarify that. These are 4 domains of influence in education as administrators that we can look at to enhance equity within our educational institutions. Each one of these by themselves is critically important. I'm sure you can read into all of them already what some strategies related to enhancing equity might be, and we don't have time to go through all of them. So we are going to be focusing on curriculum interpretation and what that means when we think about strategies to enhance equity. You are going to have the resources, though, to dig deeper into the other areas too. So, curriculum interpretation. It's defined by looking at having opportunities for team members to really think about and talk about issues of diversity, to think about their values and have engagement and dialogue around social justice. And the administrator's role as the leader for equity in doing this is to provide an environment which is safe for those conversations to happen. It's also the way in which we are helping to focus on our school's mission, our program's mission, that we are publicly sharing our focus around equity and access, and that we are having sometimes uncomfortable discussions about diversity, fairness, equality, and that we as the administrators are making sure that we provide supports for that to happen. Modeling equity beliefs for team members is another piece of this, and this means that our attitude as administrators are going to be visibly seen and are going to influence the beliefs and practices of those around us. And so we're daily modeling our beliefs, attitudes, we're daily practicing through every interaction that we have with staff members, students, whoever it might be. And that we are confronting, whenever it happens, language that would seek to take away the equitable environment that we're trying to create. So language that focuses on stereotypes or bias, implicit bias, we are openly confronting that to change the dynamic there. Clarifying misconceptions about equity, another component within curriculum interpretation. Here, we know that people can have thoughts in their mind, images of what certain people do and bring to the table. This is our opportunity to really make sure that we are surfacing those misconceptions and changing them about any of the social groups that we serve. And you saw, it could be gender, it could be income, it could be race, whatever the conversation is that's happening that's looking at people through a deficit theory of success, we're helping to clarify those misconceptions by focusing on an asset model to success. And we are upholding opportunities for achievement and success versus the deficit theory. And then finally, creating a safe, affirming learning environment. And here, this is again where school leaders are not just because they have to, making sure that things are okay on campus, but they're intentionally trying to create an environment in which everyone feels welcomed and valued. And again, we are giving them the supports in which they need to be successful in their learning environment. So making sure that it's free of anything that would go against that, that would be contradictory to an affirming learning environment. All right, so we've talked a bit, and I've shared a little bit on each of these just before, so I'm going to hit them quickly now. Encouraging team members to talk. This means that you might look at your mission and your purpose and think about it as with the focus on equity and what that could mean. That you might seek to use opportunities like your PLCs to have this be a part of your discussion, have equity be a part of what you're looking at and the data that you're examining that impacts equity, and finding ways in which you can engage in a positive way around these social justice issues. First, making sure that everyone even understands what that means and having that conversation too. Modeling beliefs, equity beliefs for team members. Sometimes we have to be unapologetically who we are and unapologetic about equity and what it means in terms of helping us achieve our mission. That means that not only are you modeling and walking that walk, but you are using your role to set the tone. And that means that you're stopping any opportunities that might demean others or might not seem fair, that you are making sure that everyone at all times is treated with the respect that they deserve and given the opportunities that they deserve to be successful. And that's from the moment at which they walk into the door. We know how hard it is for our students to just make it to the door. And so when they get there, we have to make sure that there's an immediate sense of you belong here and you're safe here, and you don't have to worry about the things outside that door that might not be supporting your success. We're going to find out what it is you need and put in place what we can to support your success. And then clarifying misconceptions about equity. So training is one way to do this, and often we might do things on embracing diversity and having trainings along those lines, or implicit bias training. And these are all great, this, like this webinar, but it's taking that a step further and using the information that you've had, but really making sure that you are transferring that into what you expect of yourself as staff members, team members, and then what you expect of your students' success as a result of that too. And so it's important for you as a leader to really, and you've heard me talk about this before, to really focus on the assets that our students bring and not their deficits, and to use those assets to help build up their success. Creating this safe, affirming learning environment. So here, our goal is to recognize again how hard it is for our students to just get there. And this says making sure not only that they're welcome, but that they're valued. I will share an example from an administrator who I was talking with the other week, and He said our whole mission for the year, our whole theme, and everything that we do, it's really simple. It comes down to two words. Those two words are you matter. You matter. And so making sure that our students know they matter. So simple, so easy, but often not where we focus. Their whole mission, their whole theme and focus around you matter. So that means that we're sensitive to their experiences, sensitive to their backgrounds. We are sensitive that in all of our public facing literature, that third bullet, that it reflects the students that we serve and their experiences. And I could share another example where I looked at a magazine that was coming out giving an annual report of the success of a program. And I looked through it, and I looked through it. And again, you can't see me looking through this fictitious magazine, but believe me, I am doing that. I looked through it and I looked through it and I looked for someone because I had supported financially this organization. I looked for someone who looked like me. And through the whole 120 pages, page after page of their annual support and their success, there wasn't anyone there. And that's their public facing literature for who they are supposed to be serving and who they're supposed to be having an impact on and who they're supposed to be focusing on inclusivity related to. So when you have the opportunity as leaders, be cognizant of even those small decisions, being sure that your public facing literature reflects the students you have and their experiences. Finally, professionalism and setting the standard for what that means for your team, making sure that who you have on board is on the same page as you are when it comes to equity, and ensuring that our students have the supports that they need to succeed when they need it. So those are 4 quick pieces to think about as it relates to enhancing equity and you as a leader and being a leader for equity. I've talked a lot and I've shared a lot. I'm going to ask now that you think about those 4 areas that we just went through quickly, those 4 strategies that you can focus on, and think about what actions that you can take as a leader for equity related to the 4 curriculum interpretation strategies. And again, there's 4 frames within which we can look at equity in education, 4 domains of influence. But looking again at curriculum interpretation, what are some actions that you can take to enhance equity? And you'll see the 4 chat pods here on the bottom. It's an opportunity for you to take a moment, take a breath, reflect on the things that you've heard, and respond to each of those and think about what are some actions, because I want you to leave with something you can do as a leader for equity and focusing on leadership for equity. What actions can you take? Go ahead, take a moment and type into each of those, and I will let there be some quiet time. In case you aren't reading as easily the prompts in the text boxes, the slide is at the top, focusing on encourage, model, clarify, and create. Karen, there's no sound right now. We're doing the response to the four strategies within curriculum interpretation and considering what action you can take as a leader for equity within each of those four areas. So I'm hoping you heard that, Karen, and just jump into the conversation. The prompts are on the slide, and it is what actions would you take? And I'm looking at some of these amazing responses, and someone else earlier said they were feeling goosebumps. As I look at what you can do and are doing and planning to do as leaders for equity, it's giving me goosebumps too. And I thank you for sharing that. I love that student obstacle board. Good, Sherry. That's important. See a few of you still typing. I'm just scrolling through our first one on encouraging team members to talk about issues of diversity, values, and social justice. Love the restorative justice circles, Adele. Great, great. Excellent, Eileen. That is so true, Esther. You have to have those uncomfortable conversations. And this conversation today has not been real uncomfortable. But one of the places that I've learned that helps people get to a easy way to have those uncomfortable conversations is to start with doing some of what we did and our getting to know each other when we talked about the have you ever and do you. And I do it by having folks actually stand up and sit down and just see who is in the room within each of those areas. And we only sampled a little bit of that today. There's many other questions that are part of that list to help us make sure that we understand from the frame from which we're all coming from as we focus on this topic of equity. Okay, good. Models too. Keeping it at the forefront, good. A plan, good, Renee. And some people have an equity plan, and the thing that happens best from that is when the administrator doesn't have to have a plan that's so thick that people get lost in the muck. But the plan is just support our students, make sure that they know they matter. Good. Clarify that equity tells effort, good. Good. Breaking down those barriers, excellent. Oh, good, Jamie. Making sure that that distinction in your mission is clear because it's not the same. This is excellent. Okay, so good. Creating those environments in which students know they have resources to support them. I came off of a site visit to what's called a care center, and it's a place on a campus that students can go to receive the mental and emotional support that they might need to be successful, which is an area of equity that's not on that list, but that social and emotional well-being and support is a critical component of equity as well. And when I saw you're talking about the resources on campus, that was one that I visually saw that was a great place to encourage and support equity. All right, so I'm going to move on. I see a few of you still typing. The good thing about these webinars is that your ideas that you've listed here are able to become notes, and we're able to put them together so you can read each other's ideas, and we can probably send those out to you, um, since we know who registered for the webinar, and just say, for your reference so you don't forget, so that you continue to act as leaders of equity. So we've talked about one of the four domains of influence when it comes to enhancing equity in our schools and in our educational institutions. Thank you, Veronica. Don't worry about the typos, Eileen. There are those four domains, and we've only hit on one, and our time is already up. The resources that you're going to see, you'll see where they come from, and you can find out more on those other domains as well. As we start to wrap up and wanting to honor your time, I want to share one final thought with you. This one is from Einstein, and it says, everybody is a genius. Everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. And when you think about this from a lens of equity, if you give everybody the same equal thing and say, you all have to do this same thing, and they don't come with the same starting place or the same ability to do that, they're going to have that same experience as this fish trying to climb a tree. We have to do what it is that those we serve need so that they can be successful. So, I'm wrapping up. We have a minute left. If there are any questions or comments, or if you've enjoyed this, please let me know in the general chat. And then this is the resources. And you'll see the first one there, the Leadership for Equity, is where you'll learn more about the other four influences or four domains of influence related to equity. I'm going to say thank you. My contact information is here. You can download the PowerPoint. I know some of you said you're going to get those pictures from there. That's fine with me. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your contribution, your enthusiasm. It's been great having you on this webinar, and I wish you the best as you continue to chart the path for equity within your programs and organizations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharice, and thank you all for such engagement this afternoon in this wonderful presentation. We are seeing in the chat that there are requests for part 2 of this session, as well as the possibility of it being a plenary. So we will take all of that information under advisement. We too think that it will be great to have another session such as this, and to engage a larger audience so that everyone can receive all of this valuable information, and it can take us back to the basics of why we are all involved in adult education. I've also posted the registration link for our upcoming webinars. This mini series, which is called Area Program Roles, the next session will be on what does effective teaching of adults look like, and we have a great presentation slated for that day. That will take place on Wednesday, August 22nd. So if you haven't registered for this session, please be sure to register for what does effective teaching of adults look like. Also, if you have instructors that you know could value this information, please be sure to have them register as well. I'm about to close this webinar, and once I do, an evaluation will appear on your screen. For everyone who's still in the room, please be sure to fill out this evaluation. It's our way of providing Sharice feedback regarding this presentation. And then there's also a question in there that asks, what do you want to learn? And that's a great way to let us know that a session like this is definitely wanted and needed. And we'll take that information back and begin planning for the next phase. So thank you all very much for your time. Again, please fill out the evaluation. Thank you again, Sharice, for this wonderful presentation, and I hope everyone have a great afternoon. Until next time.
Thanks so much, Veronica. Thanks, everyone.